at our parent-teacher interview. I'm Mr. Power.
And I am a concerned parent. And my question is, I've noticed throughout our current parent-teacher conference that you continually use the terms assessment for learning and assessment of learning. What do you mean by both of those?
Well, there are two different types of assessment. So assessment of learning is kind of your final assessment. It's more of a summative thing, so a lot of the times it'll be associated with a letter grade or a number. You'll use it. Summative assessment is kind of a test or a final project or an assignment that I'm actually taking for marks to see in the end of your unit what you actually understand from the unit. Assessment for learning is more as we go through the unit. I am assessing, as we go through each stage of the unit, I'm assessing what you know or if you get it. I'll do things like checking for understanding so that I know it's okay for us to move on. It's also a way for me to see how kids are doing compared to one another, so that maybe if we do group work, I can pair up a student that really understands the material with maybe someone who's struggling a bit. So assessment for learning is a little bit more something that helps us progress through the unit. Any written activity or any activity that students hand into me that's for learning, that's a formative assessment, is something that I'll give them a lot of feedback, written feedback, without necessarily a letter grade or a number associated with it. So there's less pressure in a formative assessment.
Okay, so what's the main difference?
Well, I guess the main difference between assessment of and assessment for is assessment of is, as I said, a summative, kind of a conclusion of how you've done in that unit, whereas assessment for learning is kind of a gauge for myself as well as for the students in the class of how you are doing and how you're progressing throughout the unit. And we can use those assessments to kind of decide the path we're going to take to continue on in the unit.
Perfect. Could you give me maybe an example of each?
Sure. So assessment of learning would be like a final test or exam or a final project. And assessment for learning could be anything from checking for understanding, so thumbs up, thumbs in the middle, thumbs down for if you understand it, or even a rough draft of something that I hand back to the student with feedback to help them improve what they're working on.
Excellent. And what specifically do you do in your classroom? Which one do you use more, or which do you prefer?
Well, I tend to use formative assessment a lot more often. It's kind of something that I try and do almost every class to make sure that everybody's on the same page and everybody's kind of working at the level that we want. Whereas summative assessment is kind of something that I do at the very end to give them a final mark on all the work they've done. So formative assessment is something that I use a lot more than summative assessment.
Perfect. That clears it up.
All right. Cool. Good meeting with you. See you later.